people took off work again to be here. Still waiting on work last time to get out today. Is there a way we can let them have their say or no?
No, this, they actually want to adjourn. The main litigants or the main protagonists want to adjourn and go over building and continue to work since they have some of their people here.
Okay.
This is the first time they're going to have involved a group of people, including people from the jurisdictions. So yes.
Hey, Bob. Yeah. Real quick, I'll give it back to you.
We'll get started in just a minute. Once again, we are waiting on the court reporter to arrive.
It is. It's recorded. True. Here she is.
We are live. We're on YouTube and stream live right now.
You want me to double check on that, Bob, just so we know? It's probably best. Let me make sure.
No, the court reporter's not here.
Well, we can start because if it's been, she can transcribe from this in the live recording. What did the lawyer say about that? I don't know. I'm going to defer to the attorneys on that.
I think she's walking in.
think she's here.
walking in now. Where did we set her up last time, Bob?
She sat back there. Absolutely.
Everyone, please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you be seated?
Okay, Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to reconvene the annexation hearing regarding the 31.3801 acres Howland Vienna Townships to the city of Niles.
Second?
Mr. Cantala Mesa,
Yes.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Ms. Frenchco. Yes.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Cantala Mesa.
Here.
Ms. Frenchco. Here. Mr. Malloy.
Here. Okay, this time I'd like to start out turning the floor over to Attorney Bob Berkey. Microphone, Bob. There's a microphone right next to you. Here you go.
As the board recalls, there's been ongoing discussions with the participants in this annexation or the protagonists in this litigation. And at this point, I would like to turn the meeting over to Attorney Nils Johnson, agent for the petitioners.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Frenchco. Good morning, Commissioner Malloy. Good morning, Commissioner Cantala Mesa, and all the other elected officials that are here this morning for this pretty serious subject matter. My name is Nils Johnson, and I am the attorney for the petitioners herein who have for over a year now asked for their properties to be annexed to the city of Niles. We're here this morning as a result of a continuance of the last hearing a little about a month ago that might allow the townships of Howland and Vienna and the city of Niles to reach some sort of agreement that would not speak only to this particular annexation, but to all future annexation petitions. Okay. Simply put, the attorneys for the parties herein, Attorney Schrader for the townships, Attorney Zuzlo on behalf of the city of Niles, and Attorney Berkey on behalf of the commissioners, have met weekly for the last month, at least, and weekly for the last really several months, to advance those discussions about addressing future annexation petitions. We need a little bit more time. Okay. I'm pleased to report that the time that you have granted us since our last meeting has been exceptionally productive. The weekly meetings have, for the first time in several years, as I understand it, resulted in a draft agreement that would speak to future annexations for the relevant townships in the city herein. This is a new development. At the last time we were here, we did not have a paper draft, a working draft. This is something new, and that's something momentum that I think we can all build on here. The bad news is the draft is not yet finalized, and we need a little bit more time to get that done. So I'm here this morning to request a few more weeks to, if you're a Steelers fan, slam the football over the goal line, or if you're a Browns fan, hope for a backwards fumble by the opposing quarterback that we might recover in the end zone. I'm a Browns fan myself. Okay, we just need a little bit more time. As late as 7 p.m. last evening, the lawyers were working the phones with one another, trying to find ways to get this finalized. And if just a few more weeks could be lent to this cause, I think an awful lot of good will come of that. In fact, if the continuance is granted, as we all seem to hope, as soon as this meeting is adjourned this morning, we'll retire to another location and have the representatives from Howland Township, Vienna Township, and the attorneys address this matter a little more fully. Of course, any type of agreement that might be reached in that setting would need to be blessed by the legislative bodies for each of these entities. Those, as you know, are meeting more regularly than they once did. And so a few more weeks to allow those legislative bodies to put their official stamp on it would finally, hopefully, put some of these annexation discussions to rest. Thank you.
Call upon Mr. Zuzalo to comment if he wants to, or Mr. Trader.
I guess Phil wants me to go first. What Neil's just said is absolutely true. And by the way, in addition to meeting once a week by Zoom, all the attorneys here, Attorney Zurzolo and I have had countless telephone conferences. I think we're on our 4th or 5th red line version of this thing. What I can tell you is we're down to one major issue and 3 or 4 minor ones. I think if the major issue gets resolved, the minor ones probably fall into place. And what we want to do is, as soon as this is done, hopefully around 10:30, we're going to adjourn. I think it's now at the planning department conference room to try to put the finishing touches on this. As egotistical as sometimes we get as attorneys, we recognize sometimes you get to a point in a negotiation where you got to have the elected officials in a room looking at each other eye to eye to resolve something. And we're at that stage. So for that reason, that's what all of us believe would be helpful at this point. If we can't work it out, we're going to know pretty soon. So we're going to ask that you set another date. And I also want to apologize. My crystal ball wasn't so hot 30 days ago when I told you I thought we'd have this done in 30 days. I'll remind you, I did say that, sometimes despite your best efforts, things don't go the way you want. And unfortunately, that kind of happened here. We didn't get everything done, but we got mighty close. So that's why we're asking for additional time. And it's significant that everybody, I think, is asking for it. The petitioner who wants it is asking for it. The city who wants it is asking for it, and the townships who don't want it are asking for some additional time. So unless you have any questions, that's all I have. And I'll sit down and let you discuss it.
I want to make some comments right away. I don't believe that the people in this room are included in those who want the additional time. You're saying that all parties want that. I understand counsel, but this is enough. The other thing I'm concerned with is our attorney is only tasked with with advising the Board of Commissioners relative to their job conducting this meeting. I don't know why he's meeting once a week, creating billable hours when he's not to be participating in any discussion between the two parties. That concerns me because I don't think that that's in your engagement letter or the resolution. Secondly, every time we have one of these meetings, we have a court reporter here who charges a minimum. We could have had this done by now. And I don't object to giving you a recess to be able to come to some meeting of the minds, but there was plenty of time. This has been going on for a year, over a year. These people last time everyone was, it was more full and nobody had an opportunity to get up and talk. They're taking off work. They're here because they're concerned. And I believe that we need to afford the people here an opportunity to do this. And if there's some type of something going on with this agreement where it's taking this long, I'm not so sure that it's being done in good faith.
Well, I can assure you it's being done in good faith, but I do want to say that Mr. Berkey's activity in this has not been engaged in negotiations. It's been a weekly update, and that's helpful too, because it sort of lights a fire under the.
We don't need
attorneys.
a weekly, we're not getting weekly updates, so I don't know why he's charging. So there's no reason for that. It's between the two parties and you should have had it hammered out by now. I disagree with a continuance.
Well,
We've been here twice, ready to move forward.
There's a load of you.
I just concur with Mr. Prater and Mr. Closest we've been to a agreement. 2019. Comprehensive. Some certainty. All annexation.
How about an hour? How about an hour so all the people here can wait? This is enough.
We would be fine.
That's what I asked at the beginning of the meeting of Mr. Berkey. For the people that took off, the only first time, second time, sometimes third time, they need to be heard somehow. And you're going to do an agreement without their opinions, without them being heard. I think if there's some blended way that we can give you more time, we're not going to roll in this for 30 days anyway. You're going to have to take it back to your councils and your trustees. But I'd like the people to have an opportunity to be heard before you go into your negotiation, which may help the decision making between all the parties too, to make sure that the people's voice is heard, not just the bureaucrats.
I don't.
Okay, now as to the process, I would do that with the process to make sure we stay legal.
Gonna bifurcate the hearing, but I don't. The record's the record, so. Usually put the input from the citizens at the end, so. Board is of the opinion it wants to move forward and hear some of the testimony this morning from the citizens. I withdraw any objection to that.
We haven't even decided as a board whether or not we're going to accept the continuance, and I think we need to decide that. I make a motion to deny the motion, the request for a continuance.
I would support a continuance just for the fact that if they're being truthful what they're saying, that they're coming to an agreement that could affect future annexations, affect the future rules and regulations and we won't have to go through this process with the next guy and the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. Commissioner, I have the floor.
Yeah, but it's not.
I have the
gonna
floor,
affect rules.
Commissioner.
Just want you to
Is that
not-
something you guys are saying here? This agreement that you're coming to, is this something more of a consensus for long-term future?
Fewer hearings. But is that going to adversely affect the property owners there who want to preserve the integrity of their township residents?
Folks, at the end of the day, if this comes to the Board of Commissioners, we're statutorily bound to make a decision. And you know, I don't want to say it's cookie cutter, but it's statute. These types of annexations don't end favorable for one party or another. If we can resolve this with some sort of mutual agreement, that's not you know, ideal for I always say that negotiations, when you walk away from negotiations, if somebody's feeling like they won, then everybody lost. So everybody's got to feel like they don't always get what they want, but they can get what they need. And at the end of the day, if negotiations can pan out and there can be a more equitable and fair agreement, it's incumbent on this board, because we're sort of bound by statute. And you could say, well, I want it to be that way. Well, you want it to be that way until it doesn't go in your favor. So we're trying to be as fair and equitable as we can. We'd like to get this. Ideally, it shouldn't come to us. These communities should be able to hash this out, figure this out. We don't like to pit communities against one another as Trumbull County Commissioners. That's one thing we don't want to do. So if there's a mutual agreement out there, I urge you again to please find that mutual agreement, because this board is bound by statute.
And there were some scary words in there, kind of insinuated that this might not be the last time we're here for annexation between these entities. And I think we need to set a precedent one way too, that this isn't going to be a revolving door where we're going to be back at dealing with this year after year after year with the next citizens and the next citizens. I kind of don't like that insinuation. I guess I got to turn that toward the city entity here, that you're talking about industrial, you're talking about commercial, you're talking about residential. It sounds to me like there are plans, or there may be plans for a bigger picture that they want to address for the next one, the next one, the next one. That bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, it does sound like it. It does sound like that this is going, everyone is concerned. I mean, let's face it, we all know that the concern here is not necessarily just for the one annexation, but everything that's going to happen in that area. And so if we're talking about plans moving plans in the future, I'm sorry.
For expedited versions of that.
Right.
Non-contested, non-fighting version. Same thing with the distance, the commercial. One that's not really, it's still.
That's where the concern is for most of the people here, is turning an area that is largely undeveloped into another Eastwood Mall area. And that's what, and that is what you're saying, the biggest portion of what concerns the community at large. And that's also, that type of development then sucks the vitality already out of already struggling urban centers. So there is so much of an impact on all of Trumbull County with what happens here. And I think that we need to just hear this and move forward, because we've been in mediations before. If it doesn't happen pretty quickly, usually it's not going to happen. And if you're leaving a variable like undeveloped property unaddressed, that's problematic.
One area there could still be some contested.
What area is that? Mhm. I'm sure people are living there though, because it's undeveloped. That's my concern. People live in certain places because of what they want. And fortunately, Trumbull County has it all. But the more it's grabbed and developed in a way that doesn't give the people what they originally wanted, you're hurting the county.
I understand that. Ultimately, whatever it is. Less of this time. Don't know if it- I mean, a petition. That's a very bad way to run government. But that's good for me. It's not necessarily good.
So you feel you have the blessing of your trustees to extend this thing, you have the blessing of your counsel, and you've got the blessing of your client to, to get an extension to work this thing out.
I think that 8 o'clock. They've already found a place for us. to meet. No, you serious?
But can we take a recess to give you an hour to hammer that out and come back with a tentative agreement so that everyone's not sitting and wondering? There's got to be an ending point. That's what I said last time. When I said that we were going to give one last final continuance and the rest of the board disagreed, I hope you realize we should have done that. Because now this is ridiculous. And again, no more weekly updates and bills from Mr. Berkey because he's here solely to advise us in this process of our meeting.
I'm not concerned about that. As long as we
I
come
am.
to the right answer in the end. I don't care if it takes a day, a week, a month, as long as it comes to the right answer that the
These
people are satisfied
told me
with.
For years, and they're not.
And I'm not going to force a decision on them out of a time frame, a decision they may not like.
I understand that it's politically advantageous for the Board of Commissioners, especially with elections, to let other people agree. I get that. But at the same time, we need to get the ball moving. I want to make sure that my point is, I want to move forward. I want to move forward.
It's not politically advantageous to have communities agree. It's advantageous to those communities.
Right.
Those communities, if they come up with a mutual decision, it's only advantageous to them. And I liken it to a court case. If you're going through court proceedings, you try to hammer out as much as you can before you get to the judge. If you can reach a settlement, if you can get out, that's what you do. That's what you do, because no one wins. The only ones that win are nobody in this case. Usually it's the attorneys, but nobody. So you got two communities that are nearing hopefully a consensus.
And our opinions really don't matter. Our commissioner opinions
Our-
don't matter. We're bound by the law on if they met the qualifications, if they met the criteria to do our jobs and rule one way or another based on the facts and based on if they met what they need to meet within the Ohio Revised Code. Because I want one thing or don't want one thing or lean one way or don't lean another way, doesn't have any bearing on this case if we do our jobs correctly.
Actually, we have the ability to make whatever decision we want based on the evidence and the facts and our understanding of the law. That's why we're here. Please do not say that your opinion doesn't matter, because I can speak for myself and I know that mine does. And I believe that the Board of Commissioners opinion matters, which is why this quasi judicial, we're acting in a quasi judicial capacity for this hearing.
Right,
So
and then
it absolutely does matter.
You're
And
correct.
it's appealable. So I think we just need to get this moving, get this done and move forward, because there is, I don't know this agreement. For all I know, this agreement has, this area of property as like the sacrificial lamb or something like that. I don't know what's going on. I have no clue, but I want to get to the bottom of this, get this taken care of. There are emails that we're getting from people who are concerned about their property. If someone's selling right now, then now is the time to sell their property or buy. I mean, this affects so many people's lives in ways that I don't think that these attorneys, no offense, really care. But because you're supposed to be working on this, representing your clients, but there are people in this area who are worried, who are genuinely worried. They're putting work on hold because they're trying to figure out what's going to happen to their property. Are they going to become Niles? Are they going to stay Howland next year, next month? We need to get this done.
On the record. I agree. Everyone's taking time out of their day
Another
to be heard.
vacation to attend today. But no, again, this is going on. There's no respect for our schedules either. None of you could have even sent something in last week. You're doing this in the 11th and a half hour. Okay. Last night at 8 o'clock, we have things on our agendas too. And not for nothing, I have a staff that doesn't help me with anything. And we have meetings this week. I really would like to be able to get things moving for myself, the board, our other work too. And this is utterly disrespectful, in my opinion, that you just continue to kick the can.
I think the possibility of a mutual and more beneficial agreement is not kicking the can. I think we need to exhaust that option, because at the end of the day, we arbitrarily have to make decisions. And if we make that decision, we have to do it according to the statute.
You can make an arbitrary decision, but I won't.
I said according to the statute.
Okay.
Just get this moving, let's go. I already know you're gonna give them a continuance, stop with wasting our time. Got meetings. Like, say something. I like.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I agree with that.
I agree.
Can they come back later on today? Can you come back and let the public and let us know? So after they speak, can we I would prefer to take a recess, let you guys go for an hour and come back and then we can decide if we're gonna give more time. We can't do this forever.
Well, I, excuse
My
me, on
motion,
behalf of
my
the
motion
commissioners,
to
I-
reject, my motion to reject the continuance request died for lack of a second, as everyone saw. So then alternately, I'm making a motion to allow the public to have their testimony, who's in the room right now, then to take a recess to allow these attorneys to iron something out for about an hour. And then to come back and let us know if there's been an agreement. That's my motion. Dies for lack of a second. Okay.
At this time, I'd like to swear testimony in for anybody that'd like to make comments. We should probably swear people in for the record. Anybody that'd like to make a comment, they took time out of their day to day. I think it deserves to be on the record. And I think it deserves to be heard by the attorneys. This is a second continuance, so I absolutely agree with that.
is that how the board wishes to proceed?
I agree. I'll second that.
Individually, people will come up here and be sworn and give their testimony. Also, any of the interested parties, i.e. the attorneys, can ask questions of any person that comes up to give testimony. So if you would, one by one, come up, sworn, and give your testimony.
All right, if you come up to the mic, please make sure you state your name and where you're from. Speak into the microphone directly also. There's actually a camera there and a camera on us, but if you can approach the podium, be appreciated.
Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to your God or affirm under penalty of perjury.
I do.
Swear everyone in.
I'm over 40. I need my glasses. Morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Bruce Gump. I live on Springwood Trace in Howland, Ohio. This annexation request is part of an attack by Niles and is in fact an existential threat to Howland, Weathersfield, Vienna, and others. If you approve this, you're no friend of the townships. You're really no friend of the county because it puts everybody in danger. They all become vulnerable to the same kind of effort by other municipalities. Roughly 25% of Howland's township population depends on Niles utilities. If Niles was to follow through on the ordinance as it is currently passed, that would reduce the income to Howland very significantly. The Howland schools would also suffer because they depend on that property tax. The children of Howland would suffer as a result. Now, I've been told, right, that they're pursuing this effort in order to gain more income for their general fund, not to make life better, right, for those forced to annex in, right, or even those who choose to do so, right? They just want more money and think that they can make it happen like a mugger in the dark. They can come in and force that people to start paying income tax to Niles. That's their goal. So here's a solution. Please act in a way that leads Niles to rescind their ordinance permanently, right? So, but to do so, don't allow any annexation to occur until that ordinance issue is taken care of. My community, like Howland, has worked and all those surrounding Niles really have worked very hard and sacrificed greatly to create communities that are healthy, friendly, safe, and stable, without taking anything away from the heroes who protect us all over the county. Howland has a particularly good group of safety services. We don't depend on a commercial ambulance service, for example. Howland owns their own ambulances, and they're excellent at it. You may not be aware, but every firefighter but one in Howland is also an EMT. They are trained to do that, right? Because the Howland Township Commissioners have encouraged them to do so and supported them in that effort. Howland has an excellent police force, right? And encourages safety. You may have seen in the paper that they just asked for money so they could hand out yellow vests to anybody that needs to be out at night, walking or riding a bicycle, to make them safer at night. Not because they're required to do so under law, but because it was the right thing to do. It was a good thing to do. Howland's financially healthy and stable. Howland has excellent roads and infrastructure support. Howland has one of the best school systems in the county also. The result is that the reputation of the whole county is raised by all the things that happened in the Howland area. Howland isn't an island, it's part of the county, right? The whole county benefits from this. However, all of these services depend on the property taxes that come to us, that come to Howland. The only source of income that Howland has, right? So removing properties, reducing the income makes Howland less capable of being able to provide those services. It costs a lot to build such excellent services, and it takes a lot to maintain them. So reducing that income also reduces the ability. And we understand that Niles has financial issues that they're trying to resolve. Howland didn't cause them. We also understand that they want to improve their city. We applaud that, right? We think that's a good thing, right? But Niles wants to solve their problems by taking what Howland has already built, right? And Niles, and Vienna and Liberty and other communities in the area. They just want to come in and suck it away, right? Because they need more money in their coffers. Niles is insisting through their ordinance that they have the right to force anybody receiving utilities from Niles to annex into Niles just so they can collect the income tax from those people, or force them to pay some kind of a tribute, right, to keep them from doing so. Interestingly, right, their example of an agreement would include that any adjudication happen in Clark County, Ohio, 200 miles away, right? I don't know why that is. Did you know in the Declaration of Independence, that was one of the complaints against King George? Well, apparently King Steve is trying to follow that same process, right? I'm aware that the particular annexation you request that you're looking at is the result of people asking to move into Niles. Yeah, I have my own opinions about that, right? Regardless, right, we can stop the ordinance from being enforced, all right, by not allowing any annexation to occur until that ordinance is dealt with. This is the time, this is the place to do this. It's honestly really a tyrannical ordinance, number 58-19, or any other that Niles that claims allows them to retroactively change an agreement to supply utilities and force homeowners and commercial properties into their city. I mean, we made these agreements, what, 30, 40, 50 years ago? And all of a sudden they're going to use that to tell people that, oh, you got to be part of Niles now. We lose all the benefits, right, of being in a place like Howland, right? We lose all of the value that we have created. I asked my insurance agent what that would do to my homeowner's insurance. He said it'll go up just because of the ratings, right? I asked others in situations how we would actually be harmed, all right, by Niles ordinance, all right, if they force it to happen. There's a lot of dumb laws in America, right? We all know that. Shucks, at one time, women were arrested for wearing pants. I mean, stupid laws, right, that happen. Just because an ordinance exists, right, doesn't make it right. Slavery was legal. That doesn't make it right. This isn't slavery. I'm not trying to compare to that. I'm just trying to point out that just because it's a law, it does not make it the right thing to do. We're asking you to do what's right. Protect Howland and Vienna and all of the other communities around Niles who are working to take away what we've worked so hard to build. Thank you.
Ma'am?
solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to your God or affirm under penalties of perjury.
Hello, Board. And I so appreciate you recognizing that the working people here have taken so many days off of work. I took another day, I'm supposed to be in Cleveland today. We can't keep doing this. I've been a lifelong resident of Weathersfield Township. I've also lived in Niles and I've lived in McDonald.
Need your
My-
name, ma'am.
My name is Deborah Pierock and I live on Morse Anderson Road, and I'm a concerned citizen of Weathersfield Township. My property is adjoining this area. The first thing I questioned, and I went to several of the meetings, the one that I went to, I questioned the fact that property that needs to be annexed has to be the word, if I'm saying this correctly, continuous.
Contiguous.
Well, I live in Niles, maybe I'm wrong. Welcome to Niles is at the Autumn Hills. This property in question is down the road where Howland Township is. So where's, my question is, and as a layperson, as far as surveying, my father was a surveyor, I should know, but where is the contiguous property with that annexation? That's a question I have. Secondly, the ordinance that Niles put in about that if they put their utilities out, they can annex it in. Okay, I have a question and a challenge with that. I've spent a lot of time, paperwork, fighting oppression too. So oppression has to cease. And I've spent about 10 years fighting oppression because of corruption. So the overreach of Niles, I want to say, I went to school in Niles, pay hefty taxes, even though I live in Weathersfield. Niles doesn't do any of the services that Howland does, that Weathersfield does. They have leaf pickup, Christmas pickup, mulch your trees. Niles roads are so bad that you can't even drive on them. And on the news dated 2/6/22, the mayor of Niles was on the news saying that because of the brownouts in their water and the problems they have with their water, I don't know if they got ARP money or whatever, but they had brownouts and they were telling their residents to boil their water. This was on the news and they can verify it, 2/6/22. So we know the quality of what we're getting as far as utilities in Niles. But the other thing, I contacted the PUCO. I hope I'm speaking loud enough. When Niles wrote that ordinance that they can annex in anyone that uses their water, I called the PUCO and I said, we don't want that. We have I have Ohio Edison, I have well water. I've lived out here. We're farmers. We don't need this. You know what the PUCO told me? Niles, we don't regulate Niles City utilities. So here you have what I feel is corruption because it's self-serving. Niles can write, how can Niles write an ordinance that they can expand their area if they force their utilities on you? They're not regulated by the PUCO, but guess what? These folks out here in Weathersfield Township and Howland Township and Vienna that have Ohio Edison and utilities, we are. So to me, that's a real contradiction that lawyers should be looking at. I gave case law this big to the Howland trustees that I also questioned. For years, Niles has been putting their utilities out on Stillwagon Road and different places. There's case law, Cleveland versus Toledo Edison. I'm not a lawyer, but I read the case law. What about they can only use a percentage of their surplus to sell outside the city? And has anybody ever looked into the legalities there and if they were allowed to do that all these years? So now that could have been illegal what they've been doing. And now they're trying to force annexation for the benefits of special interest groups who personally told me the reason they're doing this is they can get their utilities 20% cheaper. That's the reason we're doing this for those special interest groups. And I want to question, how do they know they can get their utilities 20% cheaper? But I can tell you, Ohio Edison, I'm a customer of Ohio Edison. That's why I'm very concerned. They have maintenance plans, they have budget billing for $2.99 a month. They can protect your underground gas and water and all kinds of things. Niles can't even offer budget billing. You have to go to, Niles doesn't offer any of the things that Ohio Edison does. Ohio Edison just had a build out in our area where they put all new telephone poles up Stillwagon Road, down our street to build out for the future. I want to remain a Weathersfield Township. I'm being proactive here because I know what they're doing with the reach of Howland and Vienna. They'll try to do Weathersfield next. I want to remain a Weathersfield Township free person. That's what we grew up and we have wells, we have septic. My husband's a builder. Do you know the kind of costs you're putting on the residents who aren't even here because because of apathy or believe me, the average working person doesn't have the wherewithal, the knowledge, and even know to come to these meetings. So what happens is these attorneys push it down the road. I've seen it happen. They keep pushing these meetings down the road till the public gets apathetic and no longer attends, and then they get to push through their agenda. So I beg you that I don't think it's legal what they're doing. That's also, I grew up out there. I've been told it's wetlands. My brother tried to build out there. You can't build out there. That's wetlands. Those areas should remain agricultural. I couldn't bring a gentleman today who's very knowledgeable. He's a disabled person and he lives at the Autumn Hills Nursing Home. I couldn't bring him because I couldn't get him here on the last minute because we didn't know about these meetings till the last minute. I called up here. Well, we don't know what's on the agenda. It all gets pushed back. I couldn't get him up here. He's your expert on watershed, where you've got watershed issues in that area that go to the Girard watershed that go down through Mahoning River. I'm not a watershed expert. Then you got issues, the other part of Trumbull County that goes to Mosquito Creek, ancient Mosquito Creek. There's issues there with your watershed that your engineers, there's a lot of issues that you're causing problems. So, but the average working man doesn't have the time to fight this. So I'm against all annexation. And the other thing, as far as these egotistical lawyers, I don't care if they represent my township or not, who are they to say, we're going to set the precedent for what you do in the future? In other words, yeah, there's other townships, maybe Bristol or different ones out there. Why do they have a right to set a precedent here about what you folks decide down the road for other townships that they're not even concerned with? Niles needs to take their urban decay. They have slum landlords, and I know them all. They need to rebuild their own community instead of overreaching into what that gentleman said was Howland, a gorgeous community. They do it right. Weathersfield, we do it right. Leave us alone. Thank you.
Nels, come forward. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to your God or affirm under penalty of perjury. I do. And give your name and address for the record.
My name is George Rowland, 2860 Anderson Morris, down the street from Debbie Crane, or Debbie Perrock, I'm sorry. If it wouldn't have been for Tom Crane stopping at my house yesterday, I wouldn't even have known about this meeting. And first of all and foremost, I want to tell you, I love the city of Niles. I grew up there. They ran me out of that town. I like to have chickens, which I can do where I live. I have a trailer in the yard. I have a boat. All Niles did was hassle me until I spent out of my 401k over 30 years ago, $335,000 to get out of that town. In my 401k today, I did the math on it. Through my accountant, it would be $1.7 million at 73 years old. And you want to take that away from me. I want to take personal note to any commissioner to please consider, all these attorneys do is kick the can down the road so everybody gets worn out. They've missed enough work, spent enough money calling their attorneys. I love the city of Niles, but I don't want to live there. They ran me out of that town. I don't have any city utilities and I don't care to have any. My mother, when she lived in Niles, came to my home to get water because Niles water was undrinkable many times. I can't compare it to these last two. Their statements were phenomenal. But my personal investment to get out of Niles and be left alone is most people's retirement. And it cost me over 3/4 of my retirement to get out of that town. And you want to annex me back. Thank you for your time.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Your name and address?
My name is Frederick J. Crane. I've lived in this area my whole life. My parents lived in this area my whole life. The piece of property you're trying to annex is the property above the property that I own. I've witnessed in the past year, and I got pictures of dumping being done over there. I want to know if there's any permits been pulled for open dumping. I also want to know when people come in and start clearing property, why they don't get permits to clear that property. I would have to do it if I'm doing it. I investigated it. They said, oh, we're doing this under agriculture. But they've already had meetings in Weathersfield Township to annex this property for a development. So there's a lot of smoke going on around the area. The big issue I have is everything above me drains onto my property. I have a large piece of property there. It's wooded and there's wildlife and everything else in there. So when you start dumping stuff and a creek is only 50 feet away from where they've been dumping, who knows where that came out of car washes, out of GEs and Niles, or Leatherworks in Girard. Who knows where that waste dirt has came from? That's the reason you pull a permit. Has there been any permits pulled for that? There's been 10 truckloads dumped over there. Also, they went ahead and cleared all this property east of Stillwagon Road for an annexation they already had a meeting for in Weathersfield Township. But when they do that, has there been a permit pulled for that clearing? No, there hasn't. They went ahead and hid this under the agricultural soil department that they didn't have to pull a permit. Well, that's not right. That throws a lot of red flags up when they start doing stuff like this. Then you hear threats, well, I'll just put low income housing in there then. Stuff like that. We live there our whole lives. We moved there and lived there and were born and raised there because we got that neighborhood the way we want it. We don't want the city of Niles coming out taxing us, putting their runoff on my property, which I'm getting silt started. It used to be a creek down through there, 2 foot wide. Now it's 6 and 8 and 10 feet wide and flooding every time we get a big rain. The more development that goes on north of that, the more water runs down through that creek bottom. It takes out wildlife, it kills trees. Then we got in other issues below us that keep damming up Girard Lake and Liberty Lake and redirecting water there. So when all that water comes down through there and down Stillwagon Road and Anderson Morse Road, it all is funneled to my place. My house is set there. I've lived there now for 45 years. It's backing up. Every time I get a rain, I got to jump through hoops, worried about we lose power, generators got to be started to keep water out so your property doesn't get damaged. Has there been any Army Corps engineer studies of surface water drain off done on these before any of this planning commission is going to allow any of this stuff? I think the EPA ought to get involved and look at all this stuff and say, hey, where this is all going, a whole big study of the whole area should be done. When Coates turned around and did their development, they had all that done. Has that been done for what these people are planning? I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. All the investigating I've done in the state of Ohio, with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Soil Conservation District down in Columbus. There's been no permits pulled because they're trying to pull this under agriculture. So now they put a little bit of corn in out there, and they're trying to say, oh, you know, we didn't need to pull a permit because this is agriculture. Well, they've already had their meeting to annex it for building before they even did this. And half of this is still nothing but roots. They ground the top off, but now when you clear property, all that silt runs. That silt is running down and backing up at my place. And it's going to get worse. My concerns are the surface water runoff. If these guys want to come out and develop the property on their own, fine and dandy, but they're looking for grant money and freebies from the city of Niles. There's already power out there. I've worked in electrical trade my whole life. If there's electricity up there on that street, city of Niles got to supply it to them whether or not they want to or not. They just don't want to pay. They want to get whatever they can get free. So I'm against this annex totally. Thank you.
Thank you. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and shall answer to God or affirm under penalties.
I do.
And give your name and address for the record.
My name's Jeff Terlecki. I grew up on the Terlecki Farm, Nowsvana Road, 1325. I'm an owner of 17 acres that border Fred Cranes, just spoke about the water issues. This land was acquired after my grandparents lost nearly 40 acres to Girard Lake. It was taken through eminent domain, and that land was purchased so that the farming could continue. This land would be on the south side of Niles, opposite of the proposed annexation. We've heard a lot of rumors of what's possible to go in there. There's talk of an on and off ramp to Route 11. We already lost acreage to Route 11. So that this would amount to the third time through eminent domain that we would lose farming ground. You know, I understand the city's moving out our way, but we're not ready for this. Our Niles has a tremendous amount of traffic for a county road. We certainly don't need any more. We wouldn't need any semi-trailers or, you know, large trucks. We're still farming this. We have a sweet corn business 0.6 of a mile away from this particular property, which there's no buildings on. It's just farm ground. And I'd like to go on record as opposing the annexation. Thank you.
Tell the truth, as you shall. State your name and address for the record, please. Address.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Creed. I live in the northwest corner, Liberty Township. And I just want to take a moment before I address the board. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. The problem I have is sometimes the citizens don't have the weight of profit. But these citizens here, a majority of them have been in this township, in this county, for over 100 years. We have paid taxes for over 100 years. I am the fifth generation on my property, which is the Creed Farm, at Route 11, cut in half, and then put this piece back in the back that I was able to buy when I got out of the service. Somehow, the board needs to recognize the weight of these folks because they made Trumbull County, Trumbull County. My ancestors, my relatives were in the Civil War, wounded in the Civil War, lived in the house on Anderson Morse Road. Many of these folks have the same weight and commitment and past money to Trumbull County. But we don't get the weight that profit does. Now, as far as annexation, we know there's going to be buildings there. It's going to happen. They're going to develop this property. So with that, I do appreciate everybody here. I'm a little nervous because at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to get the weight that we require as people that have made this county for years and years. They used to farm it with horses. So anyway, thank you very much. I'll continue here. The property I have has a creek that runs through it. I live next to Mr. Crane. Currently, the creek on my farm runs all year, eventually discharging into the lower dry bed of the lower lake. It is fed by a spring on the east side of Route 11. It is joined by surface runoff on the west side of Route 11. This creek is natural and provides drainage for both watersheds for over 100 years. It's been established, been there. When Route 11 was constructed, they installed a culvert under 11 to continue the natural drainage. This creek extends from the south end of my farm north more than a mile. If you look at the USGS Stream Stat website, it will show surface drainage of the east side of the JDR Holdings wetlands north through the Prino, pronounce that? Prino LLC lands. How do you pronounce his name? Those are the other 5 pieces that are on the north side of Niles Vienna Road. Are we familiar with that property? Lawyers are. Huh?
Magnolia is Niles. Magnolia.
Yeah, how do you pronounce his name?
Well, I only know my brother-in-law.
I'll say LLC, okay, because that's what it's licensed under. If you go to the Trumbull County website, that's what the holdings are under this LLC corporation. The JDR Holdings, which is next to Crane, also drains along the Liberty Township west line to the lower lake, which now, since they went in there and changed everything, the water pattern's all different. Years ago, a road, before they took by eminent domain, the property from the upper lake, that part used to have a road that went from the upper lake through the LLC property, and a small bridge was used across the creek. My dad always wanted me to go back there and see if I could get the cut stone that they used for that bridge, but I never did it. What we have now is surface water, which passes over land without any distinct channel that migrates to the creek. No distinct channel, just surface water. With that said, the current surface water acreage that extends across Niles Vienna Road, north past Mines Road, eventually drains into this creek. This type of natural drainage is referred to as slow water. This is what's changing at Fred Crane's place and other places. It goes from slow water to fast. It's my belief that the LLC and the JDR Holdings property was not purchased for farming. Agree? Agree. Can't do that.
Your testimony is.
And that's bad?
Court reporter cannot pick up everybody else.
Oh, okay. They agreed. They agreed. This type of natural drainage is referred to as slow water. I believe that they're going to not farm this property, and it will be developed. Development of the LLC and JDR Holdings properties will require something in the order of 22-foot wide streets with storm drains and curbing. The homes or units that will be developed will be designed to have drainage from the roof downspouts and grass areas. The addition of non-permeable surfaces will become what I call fast water. It is the disposal of this new fast water that is my concern. I'm looking for assurances that I will have a continued flow of the stream in its natural condition. How does Trumbull County currently address or define private rights to dispose of water? Because they're going to have to dispose all this water. What's Trumbull County do about that? Back to, they went in there and ground down trees for all summer, every day. The stumps are there, the roots are there. They changed the wetlands. because if you look at the USGS map, it shows wetlands on that property. So how can I be reasonably free of any additional damage caused by the water protection, their protection, activities of a housing development? What we have now is surface water, however, originating, and it will pass over my land, but they're going to change it to fast water. And I'm just looking to you folks because I don't think the studies have been done. The watershed hasn't been done. The permits weren't pulled. They threw corn in the ground. The farmer's really good, by the way. That's really beautiful corn on fields that were fallow for years. I mean, the farmer's not at fault. But this is a little bit of, since we're the little people, and I call little because we don't make money for the county like you want, some people, we're not getting our voice. City people always tease me. They say, well, John, you live in the country. You poop in the backyard and drink out of the front. Well, yeah, I have a septic. I have a well. I love it. With that said, thank you very much for your time. And I hope you consider the people that made this county, the county that we have today, by paying their taxes and obeying the rules. Thank you.
What else? I swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer. Give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tim Halchuk. I live on Stillwagon Road in Howland Township, literally about a quarter mile up the road from where the annexation's happening. I have been fortunate in life, except for actually some time when I was in the service. I've been a Trumbull County resident my entire life. I am a small business owner. I have a office in Liberty Township. I have 18 full-time employees. Most of them have been with me 15, 20 years. I've been fortunate enough, I was able to decide where I wanted to build a house. And so in 2017, a piece of property came up on Stillwagon, which I purchased. Built my house in 2019. Right afterwards is when they started this ordinance that, hey, we want to annex people in. I have zero desire, nor wants, to pay a Niles City income tax. I purposely chose to live in Howland Township. I like where I live. I go right around the corner every weekend and buy corn from the Terleckis. They're nice guys, the three brothers down there. Okay. I like where I live. My office is in Liberty Township. If Niles chooses to follow through, I have no doubt that A, my property value will go down. Two, my services will be lessened. I will get not as good police force. I will get not as good fire. I will get not as good EMT services. I live a couple of miles from my parents' house who are in their 80s, so I can go over there and run. I would personally, honestly, I'll sell my house before I'll let Niles City, pay an income, make me pay an income tax to them. I think this is without question for them to say, hey, if you want to keep our city, if you want to keep our utility, you have to ask to be annexed into the city, which is how I understand that ordinance is written. That to me is crazy. It's like, I actually did call Ohio Edison and I said, well, how much to get you to come here? And they started figuring it out and they said, you need this many, power poles and they got to go down the other side of the street. And they said, you need this, that, and the other. And they quoted me a price of $80,000. And I says, okay, what do we need to do? Get started. And then they came back to me and said, they actually had a manager call me who says, I can't give you my name. He goes, we can't do that because we just did a deal with Niles over that business with the sanitary tanks over in where they brought Ohio Edison down and we agreed not to do that again. Because they panicked when I told them, I'll write you your check for 80 grand so I don't have to pay a Niles City tax. So I don't, this annexation to me is, they're all right. Everybody knows that cornfield, and he's right. It is beautiful corn. I mean, I drive by it every day on the way to work. That's not going to be a cornfield for too much longer. That's why the undeveloped property is in question here from the lawyers. Without question, no doubt about it. That's what we're all talking about. You know, the property from the lady who asked to be annexed, she touches that neighborhood right back there, and then it jumps across the street to the police chief across there. And they want to jump Niles Viana then and just go right there. We all know that's what that is. They can give me all the lawyer speak they want. That's the bottom line. But when they want to start saying, well, we can now run up Stillwagon, or we can run up the, North Road and all these other places, it's just a tax grab. And tax grabs should be stopped. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. He held his hand. I'll defer to the chair.
Yeah, it'd be the board. I have no problem with that.
I have no problem.
No problem at all. If you keep it brief.
You're still under oath. Yes. And please restate your name. I'm John Creed. Back to this property. If you go to the Trumbull County website, the auditors, I don't understand how they appraise property. But Jan Terlecki, they have 16 acres. It's listed land use of 101 cash grain farm. Land value is 64 grand. They pay $680 a year. We go back to the LLC, 10.7, got corn on it. It's at 100, the land use is 100, agricultural vacant lot. Land value of 36, their tax is 826. On the other piece, they own 1.39 acres. It's 501. I guess it's residential unplanted, 101. Land value 21, pays 616. On the other acreage of 1.33 acres, that's also 501. Residential unplat, I guess is how you pronounce it. Got corn on it. $21,000, pays 467. On the other one, again, is 5.21, is listed as 501, residential unplanted. So I'm just wondering, since you have corn on it, how long do you have to have corn before you become grain? Because part of the testimony was, this is just kind of property out there, and is it listed correctly? The JDR holdings is 10 acres, one piece, land use 100, agricultural vacant lot. Well, that's the piece next to Fred. That's the piece of swampland. If you look at the USGS, has swamp area on it, not swampland, the whole thing. Because all those houses along Stillwagon drained back that way. So they always naturally went back through that field and then migrated into the creek that goes past his house. And then on floods, big rains, it would cross over and come over into my creek. So I just question the agricultural vacant lot for JDR. And then his other 48 acres, it is under 119 CAUV. So I just question how that, because I don't understand how the, frontage, road frontage and all that, how it works. But I think we should take a look at, are we good fiduciaries of what's going on and the things listed correctly? That's all. Thank you. I swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. And about the truth and the lies.
Deal, North Road, Niles. Normally when I come to meeting, I got one or two things. How's that? I don't know. Normally when I come to a meeting, I have one or two things to say. Listening to some of your comments, it got me kind of heated. First off, I'm not corrupt. I'm from Niles, and my 40 annexation, as much as I hate to say it, yes. But there was ways to go around this where we wouldn't be here today. Niles should have came to you, kept everybody friends and in the clique and said, hey, we want to develop this land. This is what we're going to do. We're going to continue to give you money so you don't lose out on it. That's what should have been done. But it wasn't, because now we go back to the corrupt and shady, and that's where you're right. It's the current mayor that came to no meetings, don't want to discuss nothing. It's his way or no way. That's all it's going to be. And that's why you're mad, and all that's why. But there's a couple things that wasn't true. First off, we don't need, it's not a cash grab is when we need the money. We got 20 million sitting in the bank. We don't need your money. We don't really. If you go back and look at some of the laws over the past, the government pushes for cities to annex townships, villages out. They encourage that. Some of you don't know that, but they do. It's because Columbus has 100 million people. They get all the federal dollars. Niles got 1,000 people. They get nothing. So the government wants to annex everybody into a town to get more people, more population to get that money. Look it up. It's the truth. Look it up. I went to school in Mineral Ridge. I was Weathersfield. When they annexed that property where I used to live in the Weathersfield, I believe it was some type of land swap. Why weren't you up here complaining about that annexation? It's because you were making something of it. You were benefiting, or you would have been right here. Who 30 years, 40 years ago, when we gave up some land out in that mall area, you got some of that. We gave you some of that land, and you're making money off that. You weren't against that because you were making money. And I'm not against it, and I feel for you people, I really do. But don't come up here and say the corrupt town of Niles. I'm not corrupt. That's why I'm running for mayor, and it's gonna change. So let's go back to who tows your car in Niles, charges you $300 to $400 a tow. I believe that person, where's he from? He's from Howland. $300-400 for a tow because he's in with Niles. He just did a parking lot that puts 8 cars for $24,000. I had a guy go out and give an estimate. He was at 11,000. So don't talk about Niles being corrupt and dirty. I believe Valley Camp and all that over there is part of Howland, some of it. I'm not living there. So let's all be fair about all this. And don't say I'm corrupt, because I'm not. And I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing it. The gentleman said he's going to pick and choose who he goes to Niles because of this. That's not fair for the people that have nothing to do with this. If you start picking and choosing, you now become the Niles mayor. That's what now that's what you become. And believe me, no matter how they roll, they should just end this today, because if it's in their favor or their favor, the losing party is going to appeal this decision, and it's going to go to the courts. We're correct. Our commissioners should not be sitting here dealing over a year. And I get it. I get it. You know, I want to end it. You don't. I do. And I get where you guys are at. I really do. But this is just saying, they were up till 7 p.m. last night. Where was you at for the last 364 days? Or I mean, the last 30 days. And all of a sudden you decide last night till 7 o'clock, you couldn't hammer it out. You come in here and act like, man, we really tried. We really tried. What happened in the last 30 days? It's got to stop. This is ridiculous. What is the one sticking point? One of you attorneys said it was a sticking point. What is a sticking point? Just tell me. I want to know what that is. What is that? Now, see, you guys look like Niles looking at me like a deer, don't want to answer my questions. What is the sticking point? What's the sticking point?
Testify.
There you go. See? Because you don't want to come out and say it. You're no better than some of the Niles officials. So don't stand up here and act like you are. Don't do it. As for the dirty water, it's not been 2 years. It's been like that for 30 years. And I live there. I know. Trust me. But the last thing I'm for the annexation. It should have been dealt in a different way. And I'm just hoping you guys end this. It don't belong here. You guys aren't making no friends either way. I mean, you're making this group mad, you're making this group mad. And it should never have come to you guys because, oh, one last thing. If the state, which I've talked to, and they are watching this, they have told me if it comes down to the point where the annexation, the land that we're getting is hurting your safety forces, they will come in and stop it. But it's not. How much money are you losing a year on this property? $1,000? $1,000, is that it? That's what we're here about? Losing $1,000? If you rely on $1,000 to run your township, huh? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
We only have one person testify.
Your testimony is, but hang on, the
Okay.
testimony is supposed to be addressing the
How much
board.
money is involved? How much money is involved here? Do you know? If this annexation goes through, how much money are they losing out in tax revenue? 100,000? Does anyone know?
As what it is now or what it's gonna be?
What it is now?
Testimony. This is their testimony.
What it is now.
Conversation.
Now should just pay them. Everybody work together and look down the road. If it's going to be housing, which is going to be, and it's Route 11, the 7-Eleven ramp, you're pretty close. That ramp. I get it. I'm not for it. So remember when you start using that word corrupt, not this guy. But I hope you guys just end this. Let the courts deal with it. You guys got better things to do than this. Because you're going to say, yes, we're going to come back here in another month. And they're going to say, man, we were here till 9 p.m. trying to hammer something out. Let's do it next month.
Can I go one last time? No, I. This is not an question and answer. This is testimony time. All that you under oath and that you, and again, restate your name. Correct?
And I'm Deborah Purock again. I don't want to be on the television camera, please. I don't mind being recorded, but I don't want to be on TV. If these special interest groups, the parties, Jeffrey Heston, Vallejo, Bagnoli, or Pino, if they're allowed to petition that they join the city of Niles, then I request permission for myself as a Weathersfield Township in prevention of chaos that I would be dealing with and other parties. I want to petition that I remain a Weathersfield Township resident. Am I able to do that? So that I want to bring that thought out because I'm going to petition to remain in Weathersfield Township forever. Is that possible? No, I'm Ohio Edison and I have my own well and septic. My husband's a builder and a developer. It takes thousands and thousands of dollars to level out plumbing and shut in septic and shut in wells. The residents have no idea the impact that would be to them.
Feel better if you knew that this does not force anything to take our input. There's no desire, there's no intent.
How does one know that? Did you put that out to the township residents that we would know that? We were not told that at our meeting. We were told that we would have to get sewage. We were told that. And
however, part of the agreement that we're talking about, trying to get to a resolution, may deal with that issue going forward. So that they never have to deal with that proverbial sword hanging over there.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, I'm representing the community that ordinance does not require you to take on.
until the Niles decides to write another ordinance. I don't want to ever be part of Niles. Thank you.
The other thing to clarify is that annexation does not affect property tax. Property tax. Clarify. As far as the loss of property tax to the current property, that is also one of the provisions. That is another reason why we're saying finding a sufficient time.
Anyone else wish to speak? No third time. Provided you're under oath, then please restate your name.
Thank you very much. My name is Bruce Gump. Live on Springwood Trace. The current ordinance of Niles already passed supposedly allows Niles to annex in non-contiguous properties. Just because they're receiving electricity or water or sewer, which actually comes from the county, so I don't quite understand that, but just because I get my electricity from Niles, they can theoretically turn off my electricity, causing a flooded basement or other kinds of problems, right? Just because they want to force me in, or there's an alternative, I can pay them a tribute, right? In order to prevent them from doing that. This is a money grab. There is no question what their purpose is. Their choice is to force us to pay them to or annex in and then pay them. All right, that's their ordinance. Thank you. No, you may not.
Wait, you took, you made.
I'm going to answer his question. He's not a commissioner.
He has a right to ask you a question.
He has a right to, that lawyer has a right to ask me a question. He's just a member here.
For the good of the order, can we?
You're giving testimony, and if there's anything that's not clear, I want to hear, or that might
He can
be,
ask you a question.
No.
I want to hear from
Has
these.
a right to ask you, and that might miss.
Is that right?
Yeah, no.
All right,
What
well,
was
go ahead
your-
and ask me a question. What you got?
The tribute.
In my opinion, under no circumstances should Niles be allowed to force anybody to annex into their city under any circumstances. Is that clear? Okay, thank you.
Were you trying to explain that the agreement that's being sought would eliminate the contiguous?
Correct.
Where's the property that we talked about dealing with that?
I have a question. For the, to expedite this process. I know you asked for 2 weeks. Even if the commissioners were decide, this is a legal question. Even if the commissioners were deciding to take this and rule on it, we have 30 days, correct, to do that?
If all the testimony were given today.
We would have 30 days from that point.
Advisement and
We would take it under advisement today. No matter what, we would always take it under advisement today. And in 30 days, we'd have to rule on it. In those 2 weeks, if they come up with an agreement,
Well, my advice to the.
we
commissioners-
couldn't make a decision today anyway, is my point.
My advice to the commissioners is that we don't want to come back unless there is an agreement in hand. If there's not an agreement in hand.
What makes our decision very clear in 30 days?
And means
Attorney, you can't, to say that we're not coming back unless there's an agreement, the whole
on a continuance, if you're going
Okay.
to grant a continuance.
Okay.
I want to have.
Well, if they need 2 weeks, if they need 2 weeks, then this will give them the 2 weeks and that'll be it.
I don't think I'm
No,
available that week.
No, remember.
No,
It-
what I'm saying is we wouldn't rule on it today anyway. We would take it under advisement.
But the
So if they
government-
hammered something out within 2 weeks, we wouldn't decide on it for 30 days, correct?
As Mr. Schrader and Mr. Zuzolo have said, it takes, they need, I don't want to come back unless the governmental agencies, the city of Niles and the townships have passed an agreement. If they have not passed an agreement, then we will not.
Well, this
we
holds
will go-
everybody's feet to the fire to pass an agreement.
But it's gonna take probably 3 weeks anyway, maybe even 4 weeks for them to go through the governmental process to get it done. But I would not, I would not want to come back unless they haven't, I want to come back. If we come back, we're gonna come back with some kind of different annexation that will pass. The city of Warren and the city of Niles and the two townships will have their long-term agreement.
Are you saying though, if we do issue a continuance, you're gonna want like Niles to go back and possibly change their charter, change their
No,
thing?
whatever
No?
agreement they're working on for this annexation.
I mean, but they would have to vote before they came back, or their
Yeah.
entities would have to vote?
That's what,
Well, the council could call a special meeting at any time.
well, that I defer to.
Correct,
Susan
Mr.
to
Yes,
do
they
that.
can call special meetings for 3 readings consecutively. It does not have to,
That way we're not holding up the process anymore.
But I certainly, if.
What I'm getting at is she said we can give them an hour, come back with an agreement. They can come back with an agreement. It doesn't mean that Niles Council or the trustees are going to agree to it.
That's
So they're coming back with just, again, a theory or philosophy or what they want, but that doesn't mean it's done
That's why,
until their entities rule on that.
that's why I want a written agreement. That
yes,
we
and
know
then
that has been settled.
it could come to us and it could be contingent upon agreement of council and the trustees. I would like to see something like that today.
Well, I think it's, well, a continuance
Someone was asking.
has to be granted. I mean, we're not moving forward with the hearing.
If you took it under advisement, which we would today if we were doing this, and we wouldn't have a continuance. This is my legal question. If you take it under advisement, which we normally would if we're ruling on this, you have 30 days, 2 weeks to hash this out, as you mentioned. You can have all the meetings you want in those 2 weeks, expedite this thing, and in 30 days we come back. You guys will have an agreement. It's the only way it's gonna happen. Okay. I'm just trying to expedite the process, that's all.
Oh, here.
All right, come forward. But I can. I will, I should say. Sir, would you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to your God or under penalties of perjury?
Understood, yes.
And state your name and address for the record, please.
James Perko, 2567 Niles Vienna Road, apartment 203, Niles, Ohio. I'm at the continuing healthcare assisted living facility. Former Weathersfield Township trustee, former member of the Eastgate Regional Council of Government Citizens Advisory Board and General Policy Board. And one very important question, the sewage. Have you made arrangements for the sewage to be treated by the city of Girard? Because it's in the Girard 208 district that was established by Eastgate Council of Governments back when I was on the board 40 years ago. And I just want to make sure that you're in compliance with the federal and US EPA and the sewage is going to be properly treated. Does Girard have the capacity to take the sewage? And is Girard in the loop on this thing?
I would like to know.
That's very important.
Point of information. I believe not long ago in the newspaper, there was an article about this.
You have to come up here and
Yeah,
speak.
it's nightmare on
Can't hear
the
you.
court reporter here. You gotta go one at a time and.
You have the microphone from above.
Microphones.
You done? Or you got more? to
Well,
say?
No, she has a
that
point
was
of
a
order
question
that I want to be heard.
had, And I'm
Okay.
waiting
Point
for
of
an answer,
information.
but
They're not gonna answer you. That's not, 1 second, ma'am. That's not what they're gonna do. They're not gonna answer you. They just want to hear you.
No, wait, sir, sit down. Please, okay, I will address it. So right now, this is testimony. It is not a conversation. There are no questions and
Okay.
answers going on right now. Thank you for your comment. We'll consider it, and we need to keep this moving and let other people give testimony. This is not a conversation. So
Well,
please pass the microphone over to this young lady so that we can continue moving forward.
Well, let me reword that as testimony. I was serving on the Eastgate Regional Council of
We
Governments
already have it as testimony.
that approved these 208 and 201 plans. And I just want to make sure what you're doing is in compliance. That was done under the Clean Water Act, Federal Clean Water Act. And I want to make sure that the sewage is going to be properly treated and that you're not going to try to do a force main to pump sewage up a hill to have it go down a hill. The plan was to have all the sewage in this watershed drain into the Girard Watershed 208 district.
Question, or you testified? You testified? You raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to your God or under penalty of perjury? Please give your name and address.
Yes, my name is Linda Marquez. The very first thing I would like to say, and I do live in Niles, and I'm also a council person. Now, the first thing I want to address, I believe if the Warren Tribune is here, in the paper not long ago, Girard had an article how they were checking that out to make sure that sewage went to them. If there's a Warren Tribune reporter, he could research that for you to see and get more information on that. Secondly, I've sat back and I've listened to some of the things that have been said. I, as a council person, I supported the annexation. The reason I did is because I believe in growth. The same way on Route 46, when it belonged to Niles, we've annexed it, and Howland's kind of taken it over. I look around this room and I see a lot of good people I know that fight for their city, including the commissioners up there. We as council people are doing the same thing. We have not gone out and beat up anybody, ran anything crookedly, begging people to come into our town or anything like that. They have come to council and they have requested, which is a very different, they have requested to come into our city. We have not, under any circumstances, not the mayor, not no one on council has gone out and said, hey, you come into our town or we're going to threaten you with this. That has never, ever happened. We have very good people. We have a lawyer sitting up there who we question all the time. We have friends that, yes, they want to come in, friends and citizens of our town that want to come into the city. We didn't go to them, they came to us. We are not doing anything corrupt, just like Howland, Vienna. I see these people, they're all trying to protect their citizens who they have. We've done the same thing. This saddens me to see it's gotten this far. I've grown up as a young girl with my parents going out that way. And yes, I've looked at it and couldn't understand because it's farm country. Why not build up? The same way I'm happy to go down 46 from Niles into Howland to see how it's built up. Why can't we come together and do the same thing? These people want to come in, not fighting, not bickering, protecting their farm country. I go get corn all the time at Terlexi's and the Cranes farm. It's the best corn I've ever tasted. But we have to also remember the city of Niles is not out to corrupt anybody, nor are we forcing their hands to come into our town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Is there any more testimony that anyone wants to give?
President, no further testimony.
Okay, with that,
Oh, there. Mr. Safari, we have one person over here, I'm sorry, who wanted to speak.
we got one more, Mr. Berkey.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth of this you shall answer to your God or under penalties of perjury. Yes. And state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is David Safar. I'm a resident of Howland Township. I wanted to ask if you guys, the commissioners, are asking this group of lawyers to talk this out, work it out, and come back to see you.
Yes.
Is that what?
That was the idea of the continuance, yes.
Okay, so my point is I don't know that they're able to work anything out from what I'm hearing. I've read a little bit about this in a newspaper. I've also listened to testimony today. I'm thinking that the only agreement they could come back with is that Niles is dropping this request. I don't know what other compromise they could possibly make to make anyone happy. I'm just not sure about that. And I also wanted to give credit to the three people that are requesting this annexation, that they have this much steam to cause all this commotion. Quite impressive for three people to make this much noise. So, like I said, as far as Howland Township, I can't imagine coming back with any agreement they would be happy with that included that annexation. They obviously don't want it. Thank you.
And then Mr. Schrader, Attorney Schrader was going to speak.
This is purely for the record. I just want to make it clear, nobody, not the petitioner, not the city, and not the township, have waived our testimony. None of us have put on any kind of case yet. What we did do was agree that since these folks were here and we didn't want to make them miss work again, that we would basically turn the procedure backwards and take the citizens' comments that normally come at the end and do them first. And I'm only saying that for the record. And then lastly, since apparently some folks didn't hear me, we didn't start negotiating this thing at 7:30 last night. We actually have been working on this since the last time we were here. And that's how you get 4 red line versions and all that. We really have worked hard on this, but it's not an easy thing to work out. With all respect, I don't see how in the hell we're going to get it done in 1 hour. That's about impossible. That's why we've asked for at least a couple weeks. If it's 30 days, that probably gives time for it to be passed by the local bodies and reviewed by the citizens so they see what's in it. And one of the things that we're trying to work out is, let's face it, that ordinance hasn't been terribly popular. If you want to get new utility service, you got to agree to annex if you're ever adjacent to the city.
We could have addressed that in our water contract too, but
Well, you could have, but you didn't.
I understand the board should have. I didn't. I'm the only one who wanted to, but I do want to say that I doubt that every weekend you were negotiating until 7 o'clock on Sunday.
No, but every week during the week
That's
we
what
were
you're saying.
negotiating.
That's
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. so
It's not that we waited until last night.
all of those other weekends, you should have been doing it until 7 o'clock on Sunday night.
Tell that to my wife if you don't
Okay,
mind.
well, but you did it last night, knowing that it was today.
That's because she's out of
Okay.
town in part. But all kidding aside, the way the ordinance just hasn't been popular. And what we're trying to do, and it's a very difficult negotiation, is to figure out a way that people aren't necessarily required to annex in order to either get utility services to begin with, and by that I mean water, sewer, if it's available under the 801 or whatever they call that situation, or electric. And the other part of the ordinance that's been a bit of a concern and a sticking point in our negotiation is that if you already have, if I got water and I got sewer, but later I want electric, then I have to annex just to get the electric. That is when we're contiguous. And there's some other nuances in that ordinance that it's going to take, it'd be a waste of your time for me, probably, or Phil to go over. The mayor can give his blessing and let you pay a fee. That's what I think Bruce was talking about. And so that is really the tough point, and we'd like to start negotiating, but we're not going to get this thing done today. It's now a quarter till 12. We started this around 10, so it's been what, about an hour and 45 minutes. The attorneys probably chewed up maybe 15 minutes of that. But if that much time was taken on citizens' comments, you can imagine what time is going to be taken on behalf of the petitioner, and then on behalf of the city, and then on behalf of the township. So with all respect, we're asking for 30 days. If you give us 2 weeks, we'll work our butts off to make it happen in 2 weeks. We can't guarantee it'll get through the public meeting process within that time. My view is probably within 2 weeks, we'll know whether we can do this or not. There may be a chance that we'll know whether we can do this or not when we meet later, hopefully later today. Because actually, I think the mayor was planning on being here around, not here, but at where we hope to negotiate at about 10:30. So we're prepared to do that today yet. So again, I'd like to renew the request for the continuance.
I have a question. Have the elected officials been in the room when the lawyers are negotiating, or is it just the attorneys?
Just the attorneys. That's why we need to have a sit down with the elected officials there. We're at the point where the attorneys are the hired help, basically. So the hired help has got us as far along as we can get. And now we need the elected officials in the room so we can hammer out these last few things.
Yes, and if we've reached impasse, then we need to know that and just continue.
I'll get on the phone and tell you today. If it happens today, the three of us will get on the phone. Well, I can't tell you legally. I have to tell Mr. Berkey.
Yes, and I'm concerned with this because you're making reports to someone who's not reporting them back to the board, but he's still billing for it. So I've got some little heartburn with that too. So I'd like to know what's going on, especially if he's getting paid by the Board of Commissioners and getting updates and not sharing them. So that he's here to help us with our meeting, not to be participating in the negotiation or getting reports back. I mean, I just want to get this done, and so does everyone else.
I think that probably we all agree to that. But the hope is if we can settle it in a way that keeps you from doing these things in the future, that's good government, I think, for what it's worth. Anyway, I'd like to renew the request for 30 days. If you can't see your way clear for that, give us at least 2 weeks. We're not going to guarantee we can get it through the public meeting process in 2 weeks, but we ought to know whether we can resolve this thing, I think, within 2 weeks. Is that fair to say?
By the end of the day, whether or not, because you're finally going to have the people in the room.
I wish we could. I can't guarantee that. And I have a little egg on my face because 30 days ago, I thought I could get it done in 30 days and it didn't happen. That's what I thought. Yeah. And that's what I thought, but that's not what happened.
We did have a tornado in Bristol the other day.
There was a tornado.
Well, there was, it just didn't hit us too bad. Okay, well, on a sunny, I don't know. I don't want to argue about tornadoes. You know what we want. I'm going to sit down and shut up. Thank you.
There's a, oh, I'm sorry.
Come back to the mic. Yes.
You were previously sworn and just restate your name.
My name is George Rowland, and at my age, I've seen a lot of these annexation meetings and these attorneys. And the more they delay it, the more they put it off, fewer and fewer people take time off work, pay their attorneys to ask what's legal and what isn't. And it's done deliberately by the attorneys because less and less people show up. If everybody was notified properly, there'd be 1,000 people in this room. There wouldn't be room for everyone. And furthermore, we have endangered species there. We have painted turtles, we have wetlands. So before anything is built, the EPA should be involved. And the endangered species that are there should be taken care of. We don't let our cats outside because fox and the coyotes will eat them. So I just wanted everybody to consider the EPA and the endangered species people who check what we have in our area should be notified, and that should all be checked. Because I don't know if you know what a painted turtle is. A lot of us older people had them as kids.
Painted turtles are common, sir. They're not endangered in any way, shape, or form. There's actually a season on them.
One that we found, maybe it was a different breed. It's a
Spotted
pet
turtle,
store.
possibly, not a painted.
Well, we brought a painted turtle to the pet store and they told us that we wanted to find out what to feed it when the kids found it. And they told us it was an endangered species turtle and wanted to know where we got it. Thank you.
Please, the board, it's my opinion, and I'm so advising the board. but before I make that, there's been a nuance, and I think the nuance that has been indicated here is that so many of the problems that particularly the zoning or the annexation requirement for utilities. That's one of the, as I understand it, that's one of the major items that's being negotiated. And if it's negotiated, it may be negotiated out of your requirements. So that would be a positive. And the second part of this is that if there's any land development there, there's a whole series of other rules and regulations and governmental agencies that are going to be involved. And finally, if going through and allowing the township and the city of Niles to move forward with further negotiations is going to shorten the time period for not only this annexation for Mr. Johnson's client, but may resolve issues for a host of other annexations that may come about in the future. Finally, as my recommendation, we give if the board is going to consider a continuance, that you give enough.
Wait a second, you don't recommend the decisions we make, you advise us on the process.
All right, I'll
Know
change it.
that.
I'm advising, my advice to the commissioners would be to give ample time, because I do not want to come back unless there is a signed agreement. If there's a signed agreement, we know it's done. If there's no signed agreement, it will have to go forward with a hearing.
You know,
The-
I think
Commissioner, you're being out of line with
I-
this.
I
He's a
think you- I
professional
think
who's
you- I
advising
think you are
on the
I think
process.
You are misunderstanding your role, and that is to advise us in the
Talk
process.
to the chair.
That is to advise us in the process. That is not to advise us on how to make decisions.
I did not prepare my letters of authority, so to speak, to represent you. It says that I represent you surrounding all matters involving this annexation. I thought my participation in some of these meetings with these attorneys was proper and beneficial, because I could keep
Look at the
on
journal action.
track. I could urge them to keep on track and moving downstream. And at any particular time, I advised the board by emails to each of you about timely things that were occurring. So it's my notion that we should at least give 30 days, depending on how we have to, of course, I know the problem is we have to develop a schedule if the board is going to consider.
It's
a
disappointing that the
contin-
Board of Commissioners can't think on their own and that they defer to attorneys to tell us what to do. You're not doing your job.
We have an annexation attorney that we're paying good money for to guide us through the process
You don't.
with this.
The procedural process, not to tell us how to vote or what to do. We don't have to accept this. And again, I move to reject the continuance. Guys, for a lack of a second, it sounds like they want to just let people think for them. Go for it.
No, I'm
mean,
thinking of the best interest of all the citizens that border Niles. I don't want to see any land grabs by cities. I want to end this thing
Okay.
here finally, once and for all with the cities. And I don't want any entity to get bigger ideas that there are ways around the system and learn from one case, and then the next person comes at a different angle. I want to see these guys work something out. If they say they can do it, to possibly prevent this from happening again. So there's not your neighbor sitting here sometime dealing with the same thing again in a year or 2 years or 3 years. I want to know that there is a precedent set by this panel here with the city now, so it doesn't happen again this way.
So we had an opportunity. It's cute how you take the advice of council telling us what to do. But when we had the administrator from Howland tell us, hey, stop, you could actually address this problem with the contract, you shushed her off and didn't realize.
Had
we
nothing
could
to do with this annexation, nothing.
addressed all of those matters, the majority of them, a lot of them largely in that contract. But you listen to Gary Newbrown, that's what you get here. So anyway, do what you're going to do. I think that we've wasted enough people's time, and I think it's evident that the Board of Commissioners is going to, bow down to whatever their attorney tells them to
I
do.
think at the end of the day, however this is going to be decided by, if it is indeed decided by the board, which I'm not opposed to, either side is going to appeal this. It's going to be a lengthy appeal process. It's going to be very expensive, and it might not go the way anybody wants it. So it's beneficial that these communities work it out before that process, before a lengthy court process.
Done
It's
that
going to be
already.
more expensive to the county commissioners and to all these parties involved. If they can come up with something, it behooves us to have them do it. Now, I will go on record. This is the last continuance, absolute last continuance.
It's,
I don't care what it is. This is the last continuance. And I don't want to see these attorneys come back here saying they need more time. That's not happening. That's not happening. And you put me on the
that's
record
what I
as
said
saying,
last time, you know.
well, I'm saying it
broken
this time.
record.
The one thing I'd like to say too, and this might be going on a limb, I might be totally wrong with this thing, but I would say based on the testimony, no, we haven't heard the whole presentation yet. We haven't heard everything that was prepared. When you go into your negotiations, it's not looking good, in my opinion, towards the entity of the city. So I would say if there's negotiating to be done, do your negotiations, because based on what I'm seeing here from the public, based on what I'm hearing in the community, and based on the letters and the input we get, it's overwhelming on one side against the other. And I would say take that as a second chance for you guys to get a deal without having to make us rule on things based on what we have seen so far.
Keep in mind, if it goes through the appeal process, who knows what can happen. So
And
it's
it-
better to walk away with some skin in the game and some win, as opposed to a court deciding it and saying, no, this is it. Cut and dry. Sorry. Statute says it's this way. Just keep that in mind.
It would be, and it would be the petitioner, I believe, not the city.
If the board is going to consider a motion to continue, we need to.
2 weeks, Counselor, 2 weeks.
I won't be. If it's,
I don't-
is it September 12th or
With
something
all due
like that?
respect, we gotta have the sign off.
You guys
by
can make the decision
legislative
without me.
bodies.
We wouldn't make the decision, then we would take it under advisement then. We wouldn't be making the
I-
decision that day.
I think that it would be important for the board to consider the fact, the date and whether or not every member of the board could be there. Wouldn't
I
that
agree.
be-
Well, when can you?
I
be
agree.
there? I agree.
Yeah, certainly, I agree. We
So
want to
what is
set
the
a date
date
certain.
of 2 weeks from?
I just
Hold on,
don't
we
see
got-
how- I don't.
Fine,
Hold
we
on.
have some elected officials
Yes,
speaking
this
too.
is someone I would really like to hear from.
No, I'm not providing testimony. I'm not giving testimony. Matthew Van Such, Howland Township trustee.
Yep.
Matthew Van Such, Howland Township trustee. The problem with 2 weeks to come back with a signed agreement is that the city of Niles has a 3 reading process. The townships have a process by which we need to gather our elected officials. We also want to give the public time to be able to review an agreement to which
Okay.
we come to it.
Fair enough.
The thing is, we want the public's input on that. We are the public's representative. We need to make if we're going to reach an agreement, we want to have the public provide us with that input at our meetings. We cannot do that in 2 weeks and schedule enough time for people to have enough time to contemplate it and to not make a forced decision that quickly. I'm assuring you that we have blocked out our day because we blocked out our day for the annexation. I believe the mayor is waiting for us to go and meet. And I have every intention of trying to hammer out what this issue is today.
Okay.
But I also need the time to be able, for what we have, to be able to put together a full agreement that addresses the issues that our residents have raised here today.
Okay,
And they
fair
give
enough.
them the proper input at those meetings to do that. We also
How
have
how
Labor
long
Day.
do we need? How long do we need?
I think the 30 days is sufficient because it allows us to have those public meetings. If you want something back here that's been approved by Howland, Vienna, and the city of Niles, you're going to have to give us those 30 days. Otherwise, it's going to be rush, rush, rush. And then people are going to come here and say, I didn't have the chance to read it. I didn't get my input. And that's not what we want. So that's my request. That's my request to you. And I can tell you, all commissioners, everyone has been working on this since
Thank you.
before and during the last 30 days, even on our vacations.
What's the calendar say for 3 weeks from now on a Monday? I see you have a calendar. That's why I'm asking you. So we're,
Are there any other days besides Monday available?
This is an important enough issue. It doesn't matter. We would schedule it at
Thursdays
any
would work
time.
for us. Thursdays could work for us.
Hills, does that help you out?
I'll do what I can. Yes. Now. I don't know what Thursday you're talking about.
No, I'd rather a Monday.
October 5th
I don't-
is-
The 18th would be better.
October 5th is a Thursday. That would be more than the 30 days that trustee Van Such had requested.
Monday would be better.
October 5th works for me.
Fine, it's open for me.
Monday the 7th, or- That's probably better for me, but
Yeah, we don't get to plan anything because we have you guys coming back every week.
October 5th works by me if that's a consensus. I don't know.
President, Mr. Berkey.
Thursdays are, I have problems with Thursdays.
Talking about the commissioners part of this, so this would already be at our local.
This would already be through your local townships.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
We want, if they're coming back here to us on the date they come back, we want it already approved by Niles Council. We want it already approved by the trustees before it hits us, a signed written deal before it comes back here. Yes.
Citizen at that point? or-
Yes, we're able to do that because we moved it to the front. So we'll be able to have that again because it's still considered at the front. I would like to ask for it to be at 11 though, because we've already gotten a lot of that out of the way.
I mean,
Well-
that day.
On the 5th.
We don't know when it's gonna end. We have no idea how much testimony. Like they said, it could be 300
don't know
people
how
here. It
much
could be
testimony.
100 based on how they like your agreement. We'll stay here till 10 o'clock at night. This thing needs to be done.
No.
Back in the old days, they'd have locked the doors and said, no one's getting out of here till we have a damn deal. I contemplated it, trust me.
Might.
Commissioner, you can't do
Saturday.
9 AM. You can't do
10:30.
earlier to get it in case it's a longer day.
I'm fine with whatever. Let's just get it done. Split the difference, 10 AM. Is that okay?
10:30. 10:30.
Whatever. Let's get it.
10:30, October 5th. And again, I'll reiterate, come back with a done deal, not a deal that still needs voted on by one entity or another. It's either a done deal or it's not, or we make our ruling that day regardless of.
And as he stands here, he should be telling us if we need to actually make a motion to approve this.
I'm getting to that point. We're still hammering out the details of it.
Right.
Does that work for all the entities? Okay, and you guys are leaving here now to go meet with the mayor and with the township trustees to try to get over the roadblocks that you have now. Okay. Okay, I'll make a motion that we reconvene on October 5th, 10:30 AM.
He should be.
I'll second that.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Cantala Mesa.
Yes.
Ms. Frenchco.
No.
Okay, we wish you the best of luck in your negotiations.
Come
Please
back
keep
with
the
an
people's
agreement.
interest at heart.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Frenchco.
Yes.
Mr. Cantala Mesa.
Yes.
Mr. Malloy.
Yes.